Hi everybody. Ready to do some GIS? Okay, so shoot, what was I gonna say? Don't forget to sign up to go to lab tomorrow. Tomorrow's lab session, 3 blocks, 9 to 11, 11 to 12:50, and 1 to 3. Don't forget to sign up for a time slot and take advantage of that. Did anyone go yesterday afternoon? I looked at the sign-up sheet and no one had signed up to go use the lab from 1 to 3 yesterday afternoon when Hannah was overseeing the lab. And anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Today, we are going to extend our knowledge of GIS and start to do some spatial analysis. So we're going to start to use some of the spatial analysis tools in the in ArcGIS Pro, and the things, you know, the tools that we're going to be using today are tools that are introduced in Chapter 3 of your textbook. And Chapter 3 uses data that deals with obesity rates and food islands, and does some manipulation with that data. But I am going to do similar things with different data sets, and we're going to use data from the national parks, data about the national parks, actually data that includes national parks, national scenic rivers, national monuments, and a lot of other things. Basically all of the land that is administered by the National Park Service. All right, and what we're going to do, let's frame the question. All right, so what I would like to do is, if we look at the United States, I'd like to quantify how many national parks are in a given state. So I think I know the answer for West Virginia. I think there's only 2 national parks in West Virginia. There's the I guess portion of the C&O Canal and Harper's Ferry, which is actually a national historical park. Maybe the C&O is a national historical park too. Now, you know, a state like California has a lot more, and there are a bunch of states that don't have any national parks. So we'll probably discover that too. All right, so that's the question. The question we want to frame. Let me come over here to my whiteboard, and things are rotating on me. So we're going to study national parks. I can't write. I think it's time for my afternoon coffee. Oh, and while we're doing this, I'll show you some pictures from my trip out west this summer. So, bonus, get to see some awesome pictures from, went to Colorado and Utah this summer and traveled to a whole bunch of national parks. So, national parks, what the heck's wrong with me today? National parks, what we want to do is, you know, so you have states. You know, here's my state boundaries, and you got national parks in these states, and there might even be a national park that spans multiple states, like Yellowstone, for example. Parts of it are in 3 different states: Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana. So, you know, looking at this picture here, let me add, let's add another national park up here. So looking at this picture here, what I want to do is generate, you know, a map that looks similar So it's the same states, but then I want to label each of the polygons with, let's use a different color. 1, 3, 1, 1. So what I'm doing here is, these symbols are individual national parks. Here, here, up there. And then over here, what I have is the counts. How many parks are in each of these polygons, and for us the polygons will be states. Okay, so this is framing the question for us. Okay, so as you're learning in lab and in class, this step of framing the question and really trying to get a good sense of the question you're trying to answer is really important when you're doing geospatial analysis. And one of the reasons it's really important is because the thing that you're trying to solve dictates the kind of data that you need. And so if you don't take the time to frame the question and think about what you're after, you can't really get a grasp of the kind of data that you're going to need. When we look at this problem here, the data that we're going to need is shape files or geodatabase with polygon feature classes to represent the boundaries of the states, okay, and we're going to need the boundaries of national parks. And if we have these things, we should be able to answer this question. Okay, so let's go to ArcGIS Pro now. Okay, get everything centered here so you can see it all. All right, I think that's pretty good. And so I already created a project to get us started here, but let's just start from scratch. And so let's create a project. I'll put it in my default projects folder, and this project is going to be called National Parks in the States. National Parks in the States, something like that. All right. If you guys have any questions while I'm doing this, make sure you chime in, okay? Leave a comment. I tried to make the text a little bit bigger in the application so you could see it better in this video, in the videos, but I'm not sure it really makes much of a difference. Okay, so I created a project, and it's a map project, so it's a default map project. And so one of the things I'm going to need is, let's look at our catalog view. One of the things I'm going to need are polygons to represent the states. I need a feature class of polygons that give me the geometries of the states. And we did this before. I could, there's 1,000 places I can get this information, and the easiest thing to do is just to go out and grab it from Esri. So if I go to Map, Add Data, and search the Living Atlas, for online for, let's see, just search for, no, not states W, states, US states. There it is. Okay, so we've used this before, and this feature feature layer is hosted on in the cloud, and it's got a lot of it got attribute table with a lot of extra stuff in it. Let me pull it in here, and I think what I'll do is, well, the first thing I'll do is so this, again, we've been through this before. When you are using data that's hosted remotely, you can't change it. You can't modify that data. You can't modify its attributes, any entries in the attribute table. You can't add fields to the attribute table. So what I'm going to do here first is I'm going to make a copy of this data locally in the geodatabase that's attached to this project. All right. Oops. There we go. Okay. So the way to do that is right-click on the layer, and we'll do data, export features. That's one way you can do it. Another way you can do it is we're going to increasingly use tools in the geoprocessing toolbox, and so here you can search for, let's try export, or let's do see if I can find it. Shoot, layer 2, I'm looking for it, layer 2, maybe geodatabase. So I'm going to use this tool feature class to geodatabase, and this would you could output this feature class into a geodatabase. There's another tool. I don't know why I can't find it right now. I don't think I've ever used it. I've always just right-clicked on here and done export features, and so I'm going to export the features in this layer to my national parks in the states geodatabase, and give it an output name. So I can't have any spaces in the output name. The output name will be the name of the feature class, which contains these features representing the 50 states. So I'll call this U.S. states let's do this, boundaries. We'll call it U.S. states boundaries. And export. There we go. So now I'll delete this initial layer, and now what I have here is, refresh this. So now I've exported the features in that layer to this U.S. states boundaries feature class, which is saved in this in the national parks in the states geodatabase, and a copy of it was put onto my map as a new layer automatically when I did that, but now, and I deleted the original hosted layer that I pulled down from Esri, the Cloud Atlas. So now I can make modifications to this. And okay, well, I'm just going to keep, let's use a color that's a little bit less oppressive to the eyes. All right. it's kind of hard to see. Here we go. All right, that's pretty good. Didn't have to do that. Okay. So I've gotten one of the data files that I need to answer the question, how many national parks are in each state, and so then I need the other data file, which would be a shape file or a geodatabase that has polygons showing the boundaries of the national parks. And let me show you where I found this data, and this is a good resource for you. Here we go. So I search for National Park Service GIS data. And the first result is tools and data from the National Park Service. And there is a ton of data. Let's go to this MPS open data. This is data that's freely available, and it's actually, it's hosted on the ArcGIS Online. And so they got all kinds of data. National Park Service has all this GIS data, and you can see one of the categories, the very first category, is boundaries, and that's what we're after. So I'll click that and see what we get. So let me filter here. I want data from the National Park Service. I want features. I want boundaries. And okay, so I'm getting some good stuff here. So here's NPS boundaries. This service depicts National Park Service tracks and boundary data. Here's centroids. So centroids are points. They're not polygons, they're points. And it'd be like this. It's like, if I had a polygon representing the border of something, a centroid would be a point that's sort of the center of mass of that area. And so centroids show the locations of features, and they would be good for a small scale map that shows a large geographic extent, and you want to show where all the national parks are. You wouldn't want to have, if you're zoomed out and looking at the whole United States, you wouldn't want to have polygons showing the outlines of all the national parks, because they'd be all teeny tiny and small. If what your map's trying to communicate are where the national parks are, little dots, points that show where they are using this centroid data is what you probably want. But I'm going to use this other data. I'm going to use the MPS boundaries data. And so I downloaded this. Let's click on it actually, and you can see a preview up here. And you can read about it, see all the metadata, you can preview it. So you can see, you zoom in here, you see the national parks, but I can tell already there's more than just national parks here, because I'm seeing, well, I'm not sure, let me zoom in a little more. Yeah, definitely, because here's Gettysburg National Military Park. So that's a different category than a national park. And then what's this? This Catoctin Mountain Park. It's not a national park, but it's something that is administered by the National Park Service. Then you have the Appalachian Trail, right here. No, Blue Ridge Parkway. Anyway, so this, you can read all about the data. You can see the attributes that it includes, and you get some information about its provenance. You know, who created this. You know, this, you would expect this to be high quality data because it's created by the National Park Service. It's curated by the National Park Service. So I went to download, and you can download data as a spreadsheet. A KML is a geographic vector file format. You know, I think it was created by Google for their projects, Google Earth. So ArcGIS can parse KML files, but if you can find a shapefile, that's much better. So I downloaded the shapefile, and I put it in a folder. There you go. I put it in a folder. Let me add that folder connection. Got to remember where I put it. Somewhere here. Where? Box. Course documents. ENVS. There it is. There, I put it in that folder right there. So I added this folder connection. So this is, it was downloaded as a zip file, and when I extracted it, the zip file made this folder, NPS, land resource division, boundary, and ... and then the shape file's in right here. So I'm going to put that in my map, drag it over here on my map. I got to put it above my polygons for the states, and let's change the fill color to something green for national parks. Let's try this. There we go. Okay. And we can make, well, that's fine. We'll leave the stroke the way it is. Okay. So let's explore a little bit. Let's explore a little bit and see what we got. So I'll go to the selection tool, and let's just click on one here. So this right here, this is Mesa Verde. Click on it and show attributes. Okay, so I click on it, show attributes. Yep, Mesa Verde National Park, green table, National Park. You want to see a picture from Mesa Verde? Pictures from, we went on vacation out to Colorado. We did a big, here I'll show you where we went on the map. Let me zoom out here. So we flew into Denver, which is right around here, and we drove up here to, this is Rocky Mountain National Park, and then we went down here and we spent a couple days and kayaked on the, not kayak, well it was kayaking, it was like these inflatable kayaks called duckies. They were so much fun. And we floated on the Colorado River. Then we went here. This is Dinosaur National Monument. So not a national park, national monument. And it's enormous, and it's called Dinosaur because there's a lot of dinosaur fossils there. We went down here and we spent, this is Arches. We went to Arches right here. And then we went to Canyonlands right here, and then we drove across dirt roads, and then we went here. This is called, what is this called? I can't remember. Oh, Hovenweep National Monument. And then we went to Mesa Verde right here. So let me show you some of these pictures. So this is Rocky Mountain National Park. This was late July, and there's still snow and on the upper altitudes. So it's about 8,000, 9,000 feet, I think. Lakes. That's Elliot. That's my son. And this is, what is that? I can't even remember what the name of that lake is. I want to say Bear Lake, but I don't think it is. Tundra with wildflowers. Bighorn sheep. Look at that picture. Yeah, they were right next to us. There's a moose. Saw a lot of moose. And then that's the Colorado River. I didn't get a lot of pictures of us on the Colorado because I didn't want to take my camera with us when we were floating on it. That was a ton of fun. And there's our COVID mass as we went to Dinosaur National Monument, and check those dino fossils out. And you could even touch them. So this was so cool. You got to touch a real, that's a femur bone from like an Apatosaurus or something. And you could touch it. So what they had done was excavated this cliffside. I don't have a picture here. And they built a visitor center around the cliff of these exposed dinosaur bones. That looks like a hip, some ribs, some vertebrae. I think that's an Allosaurus. I'm not sure that's a real fossil or a cast of one. And then at Hovenweep and Mesa Verde, you see stuff like this. So these ancient peoples, pre-Puebloan Indians, would come. I'll show you some more. This is Arches. It's Arches National Park. That's my daughter. I said smile, and that's what she did. There I am in this hat has been everywhere. I've had that for like over a decade, and it's been everywhere with me. That's my expedition hat. So check this out. So this is a little valley in Canyonlands, and there's a little spring-fed watering hole there. So you see these things, these places where the pre-Puebloan Indians would create this wall art, petroglyphs, rock figures, and here I gotta show you this one. So what's going on here? Yep. Yeah, I think that is what we think it is. Drum cave. We stayed at a place that had a cave, and they had a drum set in there, and the kids loved to go in there and play drums. Yeah, see, just excavated into this sandstone. They had just built these caves. See, people's homes were right in the caves. And here's some more. So, all right. You got these petroglyphs and these paintings from thousands of years ago. And so I'm going to show you the one that blew my mind the most, okay? Nope, not that one. Can you see it? Handprints. These are handprints that people had put in there. These are the actual handprints from people thousands of years ago on this rock wall. Here's some more. Look at them all. So I'd love to do a trip out there with students someday. This is these are called the the needles, I think you can tell why. This is at Canyonlands. So Canyonlands, it just looks like another planet. You got these strange rock formations from wind and erosion in the sandstone. This was called newspaper rock. The style, so you can tell, like, some of this stuff is really old, but it looks like early settlers added stuff in here, like these wagon wheels. And you're like, well, what story are they trying to tell us? What are these things trying to tell us? So we drove off road for about 2 hours to get to Three Kiva Pueblo, and then we went down inside of it. Or lizards crawled down inside of it. So we actually went into this. A kiva is a round room as part of a pueblo, and yeah, you can actually, and these crazy yellow-headed lizards. So this is at Hovenweep and Mesa Verde. You have these cliff dwellings. So because of COVID, we weren't able to walk down there. They were closed, but we could still get some pretty good pictures of this. Look at that. So these are reconstructed. This is what archaeologists believe they look like about 1,200 years ago or 1,000 years ago. But when these were first found, they were just ruins. But all the rocks were there, and they used the existing rock to build them back up. It's an amazing place. Okay. Anyway. Oh, here's a cool place. So this is called Sand Dunes National Park. And I wonder if I have a picture. Yeah, there you can get a picture. So this is an enormous sand dune from eroded sandstone that had blown across this valley and gotten stuck up against this mountain range. And it's a little bit south of a town called Crestone, Colorado, which was a very interesting place. So Crestone, Colorado was like this little tiny town, and everywhere you look there's like a Buddhist temple or a Christian church or just all these different religions that had congregated there and made these retreat centers. It's a very strange place, but neat. All right, so enough pictures. But here's some of these places. So here's Hovenweep National Monument. Here is Mesa Verde. This right here, what's that? That's part of Hovenweep. Canyonlands. This is Glen Canyon National Recreation Area. Here's Arches. So Moab, Utah, if you might have heard of that, is right around here. And here is the Great Sand Dune National Park. So this is interesting because the national park is here, and then right next to it is a national preserve. So it's got a different designation. So they got different rules for how they're governed. All right. Anyway, so we have the data that we need, and I think what I'll do is I'll put the let me put the national park. The national park stuff is a shapefile, but let me put it into my geodatabase to be consistent. All right, so I'll do that, and then what I'll do after that is so we noticed that this file, this data set has features for national parks and national historical parks. So we'll focus on those two categories, but it's also got scenic rivers, scenic trails, national monuments, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And so we'll filter that stuff out. All right. before we, because what we're interested in is how many national parks are in each state. Sorry, I don't want to do that. Okay, check out Alaska. It's like 50% national park. All right, so I'll go here, data. I'll export these features, put it in my national parks in the states database, and I'll call this national park park service boundaries. Okay, because it's, oh, I can't have spaces. You can't have spaces in the names of feature classes. If it would give me a warning if I did that. So I'm going to export that. And then I'll delete the layer that's coming from the shapefile. So I just have the layer that is now attached to the, let me refresh this, the National Parks and the States geodatabase. So I got these two feature classes in here, one for the US states and one for the national parks. So let's look at the attribute tables quickly and just explore a little bit. So the states data has a ton of different fields in the attribute table. I mean, it's demographic data. I mean, it's a lot of stuff we don't need. I could delete all the stuff I don't need to make it easier to navigate. But I'll just leave it alone, okay? And the national parks, same thing. The national parks layer, its attribute table, it's got a lot of stuff I don't like. I don't need to know who created it. S. Carlton, apparently, and it was edited by R. Johnson. Well, not that one. So you know, these are individuals. But one thing that you'll notice is, you know, one of the columns here is called unit type, and the unit types are, you know, national battlefield site, national monument, national recreation area, national park, national historic site, national historic park. So I imagine the difference between a historic site and a historic park is just scope, the size. Oh, Jasmine, mine downloaded as a zip and won't pop up on the ArcGIS when I try to do the folder connection. So what you got to do is, so I got you, Jasmine. So what you got to do is, you've got to open up the zip file. You got to extract it and then move that folder somewhere else. Maybe I can show you here. Let's see. Let's see this PC. Oh, downloads. Well, it's not here anymore. But here's a zip file. So if I double click that, what I want to do is copy this and paste it somewhere else. So that you got to uncompress the file, the folder, before you can make the folder connection. Another thing you might need to do is right-click on folder connections. Well, never mind, you won't have to do that. But see if that works for you, Jasmine. But these, let's filter our results. So one thing you could do, if I just want to focus on the national parks, you could go to select by attribute, and here you could do create a selection expression. And so here we could say, let's select stuff where the unit name is equal to, sorry, not unit name, unit type. That was this column. Unit type is equal to national park. Let me make this bigger so I can actually see these. Or make this, or unit name is equal to, no, not unit name, unit type. There it is. unit type is equal to National Historic Park, National Historical Park, and then click apply. So if I zoom in here, you see that now it's selected. Like if we go in here, it's selected Mesa Verde, but it has not selected Hovenweep, because Hovenweep is a national monument and Mesa Verde is a national park. Same thing up here. It's selected Rocky Mountain National Park, but not Dinosaur National Monument. And if we go to West Virginia, it's selected the canal and Harper's Ferry, but down here in the middle of the state, it hasn't selected these, which is New River Gorge National River. So it hasn't picked up on the national rivers. Okay, so what I could do now is I could, if I right click on here and do data, export features, it'll export the features that are selected to a new feature class in my geodatabase. Okay, and then I could then use that feature class. Well, let's try this. So let's call it National Parks Only Boundaries, and then click OK. And now if I unselect that, you see that what's in the National Parks Only boundaries is just the national parks. So there's everything. So that's one thing you could do. Let's clear the selection. Another thing you could do is, we'll turn that layer off, turn this one back on. And you've done this before, is you can go into properties and do a definition query. And I'll say, I want to do a definition query here where unit type is equal to national park, or the unit type is equal to National Historical Park. There it is. Okay, and it accomplishes the same thing. So now this layer, which has all of the polygons for everything but filtered, is the same as this layer, which was I selected what I wanted and exported it to a new feature class. Okay, so you can accomplish the same thing either way. Let's get this one off our map so we don't get confused. Let's just keep one of them. All right, so we'll just keep this one. And so now this is just the national parks, and we have the data. All right, we have the data that we need to answer our question. All right, and I think I'll stop there. We'll pick this up on Friday. So we, one thing you might want to check. Actually, we got 5 minutes. Let's check this now. So one thing that might be true is some of the national parks are not contiguous, which means there's like a little piece of park here, and then there's some private land or national forest separating another piece of the park, and so you have two different polygons. Well, maybe it's two separate polygons in the sense that each of those polygons has its own row in the attribute table, or maybe if it's this is a data set that's prepared by the National Park Service, so I bet it's not going to be like that. I bet it's going to be where it's like you have one row in your attribute table, one feature, and that feature is represented by a polygon that's disjoint. Part of it's here and part of it's here. So we can explore that quickly. And let's see. Where's a good place to do this? Trying to think of a national park that has this property. I know there are some. Shoot. There's one let's look at Sequoia National Park. It's in here in this. Is this Sequoia right here? Yep, that's Sequoia National Park. There's one, Kings Canyon National Park. So Kings Canyon is attached to Sequoia. Let me do a select. But you can see that the polygons for Kings Canyon, there's actually, well, it's continuous there. There's two separate polygons, but they're linked together. So in the geodatabase, they're considered one thing, one entity. All right. So there's no further work we got to do. In other words, because it's like this, that this one national park is two polygons, but these polygons are linked so that it's just going to be represented in our attribute table with one row. If we do any analysis on these polygons, it's only going to be treated as one entity, one national park. But it's possible that you'd have two entries in your database, one for the eastern polygon and one for the western polygon, and they're both Kings Canyon, but they have separate separate rows in the attribute table. And if that's the case, one thing you probably will do before you proceed in your analysis is something called a spatial dissolve, where you'll take those separate things and you'll dissolve them into one thing. And you'll dissolve them based on the attribute of park name, because even though they'd be two polygons, they have the same park name, and then that would link them together in the resulting feature class, and you'd get rid of this problem. All right, so we don't have this problem here, but we could potentially have that. All right, so that's enough for today. So tomorrow in lab, you got lesson 3 to work through, and there's only 2 parts, A and B. All right, so come ready to lab to do that, and I'll be there from 9 to 11 and from 11 to 12:50, and Hannah will be there from 1 to 3. And Friday we'll finish off this national parks question. And so what we got to do next is we're going to do we're going to apply a spatial analysis called a spatial join. And as part of this, we're going to count up how many parks are in each of the state polygons. And that'll produce a new feature class that then we can visualize on our map. All right. Well, is anybody having any questions? Jasmine, I hope you got your zip file unpacked and it's working for you now. If not, I can help you do that some other time. But enjoy the rest of your day. All right, I think I'm going to go look at some more pictures from my trip out west and reminisce and dream. Imagine I'm still there. All right, I'll see you.